Hello, I'm Rebecca the Maths Lady, and welcome to this video which is all about teaching children about money. In this video I'm going to cover how we teach children to have a deep knowledge of their notes and coins, how we teach them to pay for things and give change. I'll describe some of the great activities you can use to give children a deep understanding of money. I'll explain about written calculations with money, and finally I'll talk about financial literacy. For written calculations with money, I'm assuming children can already calculate with decimals. So if you're going to cover written calculations with money and you've not covered that yet, here's a link to that video now. I'm based in England, so I'm going to be working with pounds and pence in this video, but the ideas translate really easily into other currencies. Right, let's get started. First thing we need to acknowledge is that many children have had very, very little experience with money these days. It's a big change from when we grew up. When I was working in schools 2 or 3 years ago, you could usually rely on the children with the most challenges in life being quite used to money and being quite used to being sent to the shops at a young age. And I think even that has changed with coronavirus and lockdown. So we have to assume that most children have little or no experience with physical money and actually teach them about their coins and their notes. So you will either need real money, real coins and notes, or you'll need some reasonable replicas. I've got some replicas here. They're the correct size, they're just not the correct weight and they're not real money, but they look right. So you need to allow time for children to explore the different coins. They should be able to tell you which coins exist. They should be able to draw them. And you need to spend time on that. You could do it in art. You could get them to draw around coins and sketch in the details, look at the heads and the tails. And as well as just drawing coins and notes, it's good to get children to articulate their descriptions of them. What shape is a 50p coin? Have you ever paid attention to that? How many sides has it got? What about a pound coin? How many sides has that got? And what about a 20p coin? Well, it turns out that a 20p coin and a 50p coin have both got 7 sides, so they are heptagons. And a pound coin has 12 sides, so that's a dodecagon. When you're looking at notes, it's nice to pay attention to who is on the notes. You can link that into history, get children to research a little bit about the people on the notes. And sometimes it's nice to talk about old coins that are out of date as well, and you can look at some international coins. So children need to become confident with the coins and notes themselves. And then they need to start to combine them rapidly to pay for things. So you can give them an item or a price and see how quickly they can come up with a way of paying for it exactly with a combination of notes and coins. Who can use the smallest number of notes and coins? Quickfire starters to the class. Competitions. If you have children who are struggling at this stage while others are flying ahead, I just wanted to recommend this game, Pocket Money Bingo by Learning Resources. And my replica coins came from that. It's got a spinner and a bingo card for children to cross off what they've found. And on the back of the bingo card, there's a slightly different game where they have to combine the coins and see if they can buy something on their card. It's just a really nice intervention for the children who need it. So once they've become confident with combining coins and notes to pay for things, we can move on to giving change. So you can continue your quickfire questions, give children the price of an object, what you've paid for it with, and ask them what the change is. And who can give that change in the smallest number of notes and coins. And if children are struggling with that, then you actually want to give them either real money or replica money so you can physically move it. So they've got a really deep sense of what they're doing. Now, as a teacher, it's helpful at this point in time if you pay attention to the fact that when children are doing change, they tend to use a part-whole model to find the change. They know the money that was paid, they know the part that's being used to pay for the object, and they're finding the missing part. You can assume that they're doing that by subtraction as taking away, but they're usually not. They're usually counting on or breaking a total quantity into parts. So when we move to written calculations later and we set it up as a subtraction and talk about it as being a takeaway, there's a disconnect there. So it's useful if you as a teacher understand that from the beginning and can link that explanation of change to your teaching of a part-whole model. And if you're not sure about that, here's a link to a video on that now. Now, when you're planning activities with money, it is so important to do some practical activities with real money. Whether your children are running fundraising stalls at a fair, maybe you have a charity day where they run stalls and activities just for each other, and everyone brings in £1 or a small amount of money and spends it on each other's stalls, and you all give change. It's really valuable. If you're in a situation where you have a tuck shop where each child has 20 pence and sweets are a penny, twopence, 5 pence or 10 pence, and they have to choose the combination of sweets or other objects in a different context but the same kind of number context and money context, that's really, really worth doing. You'll get a further insight into some of the activities children can be doing with money when I talk about financial literacy later in this video. But before I do that, I just want to talk a little bit about calculations with money. Now, the key here is to get children to write down any quantity of money with 2 decimal places. So if it's £5, it's going to be 5.00. And that's because if you're adding £5 to 89p, the 89p is going to have to be 0.89. We need to express the money as pounds and pence to 2 decimal places. You could add everything up as pennies and then translate it, but it's best to get them going with this kind of addition. So you want to give them some awkward amounts of money that force them to focus on making sure whole numbers of pounds have a 00 after a decimal point, and you have some quantities that have no pounds at all, that are less than £1, so they have to add the 0 point. And you need to talk about the reality of 89 pence being £0.89, which is why they need an understanding of decimals before you work on this topic. That is not trivial. They need to know that each penny is 100th of a pound. So 0.89 is 89 100ths of a pound. And that can link back into their work on 2 decimal places. And children can get very thrown because they don't understand what's going on there. So slow down and take some time with it. So what I'm saying there is, if we had a calculation like £8 plus 59p plus £2.43, children need to be able to cope with that by setting it out as 8.00 plus 0.59, knowing that 59p is 59 100ths of a pound, plus 2.43, and then add that up. And they need plenty of practice of converting a practical situation like that into a calculation like that, because it's not easy. But once they can do it for addition, they should be able to do it for subtraction too. That follows, apart from what I just said, that when we set up column subtraction, we're really thinking about it as being taking away. And there's a disconnect there if children have been thinking about finding change as being counting on. So be aware of that, slow down, lean into it, make sure children are comfortable with the idea that subtraction is finding a missing part in a part-part whole model, which can be done by taking away or by counting on. It's all the same thing, it all generates the same result. Now, multiplication with money follows fairly easily. If you had 4 objects at £2.49 each, you should be able to set that up as a decimal multiplication. But division brings another problem. So say we had £8 and we were dividing it equally between 5 people. We would naturally set that up as 8 divided by 5. There is 1 5 in 8, or 8 divided by 5 gives 1 each, with 3 left over. And we've got 30 tenths here if we're thinking about this strictly as a division, but it's 30 lots of 10 pence. We share them between 5 people and each person gets 6. So we're done, right? Don't need to go any further. Except 1.6 isn't an amount of money. That needs to become £1.60 to be a sensible answer. And that's what I'm getting at here. When you're dividing, you can end up with money quantities with 1 decimal place, and they mustn't be that way. They need to have exactly 2 decimal places always with money. So make sure you lead children into that trap, catch them in it, sort it out, and then check it because they will forget again. The final kind of problem-solving written calculation with money is where you start to look at value for money. That's only done in really easy contexts at primary school, but it's interesting to start to explore it. Whatever you do along those lines, it should be really easy for children to picture and deeply understand what's going on when you're comparing value. So it would usually be, here's the price for one item, here's the price for a pack of 4. And let's have a discussion about which it's better to buy and why. And you're allowed to say, well, I would just buy one even though it's more expensive for one because I only want one. One final thing about calculations with money, which I want to cover as we bridge over into financial literacy, is debt. So if I had £5 and I spent £8, what would my situation be? And we can look at that on a number line and count back 5. Well, when we've spent 5 of the £8, we've got nothing left. So then what happens? And we end up £3 in debt as we keep going. And we can start to talk about debt in that context and how we might get out of that situation and what the consequences of debt might be. That work is really beyond this level, but it's lovely to touch on it and lay some good foundations for the future and open up some interesting conversations about life as we bridge over into financial literacy. Now, on financial literacy, I am going to defer to another YouTube channel that's compiled some really brilliant videos on getting children to talk about fundamental concepts in earning money, why it's important to save money, what bank accounts are, what credit cards are, and so on. And I'll put some links in the description to this video, but the channel that I'm going to recommend is Learning Mole. And at the time I'm making this video, they have 5 videos for young children on financial literacy. There's one called How to Help Kids Save Money. There's one called How to Make Money. There's one about financial capability, which covers bank accounts and interest in a really foundational way. There's one about credit cards and there's one about pay slips. And they've been really well put together, and I couldn't do anything that was as good or as suitable, and you can use those directly with the children. And when I watched them, they set me off thinking about all sorts of things I could do to expand my work on money out into the community and generate new ideas for activities for children to do. If you're going to pop over and watch them and you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do so you can find me again. One last thing before I forget, the notation for money can be tricky. It can be really useful to focus on drawing some of the symbols for money and checking that children can do that. And if they can write your currency, why not give them the opportunity to draw the symbols for a few other currencies they're likely to come across too. So in summary, in this video, I've explained how we must teach children quite deliberately to have a good working knowledge of their coins and their notes, because they may not get that from anywhere else, and it matters. Then we have to teach them how to put coins and notes together to pay for things and how to work out change. They need to do practical activities where they use real money, such as running small charity stalls. They need to do written calculations with money, and you need to start teaching them about financial literacy and money in the real world. Value for money questions are great if they're really straightforward and in context that every child can imagine. It's great to do some notation. And finally, especially at Christmas, it's great to encourage children to play classic games like Monopoly and Game of Life. Most families don't have time to do that often, but hopefully maybe over the Christmas break, maybe when there's some extended family around, they can do it at least once or twice, and it's really, really good to do. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. If you'd like to see a full list of the videos that are available on Teaching Primary Maths, please go to www.authenticmaths.co.uk/videos. I hope you really enjoy your maths teaching. If you have any comments or suggestions, please add them in the comments to this video. And please encourage your colleagues or friends to watch these videos if you think they'd be helpful to them. Enjoy your teaching. Bye for now.